Let's start our first news with Conor appearing to call out the UFC over the injury that forced him out of his latest fight. In what seems to be a joking Instagram post, Conor suggested that the smoke machines used during his entrance may have made the cage floor slippery, jokingly implying that the wet surface was responsible for his knee popping. He wrote, "The white, orange, and green machine moseying on back to the office. Sorry I'm late. But the dry ice has the cage floor wet. It's a no contest now. Chop chop for the champ. I'll see us next year, 100%. Conor then responded to his own post, adding, "Effortless. They were all I was chilling. That's a fact." But that wasn't the end of his Instagram activity. Conor later shared a much more serious message about the amount of work he had put in leading up to his return. He wrote, "The amount of work I put in without getting even a semblance of a fight back is really disheartening. But is it? That work is still there. Now I am being called upon for more work, more discipline, more growth. What is my problem then? None. I don't have one. Thank you, God." The comments certainly caught people's attention, especially given Conor's long and complicated history with injuries, setbacks, and failed comeback attempts. While the dry ice comment was clearly delivered with humor, his second message appeared far more reflective, suggesting that he's trying to look at this latest setback as another opportunity to work, improve, and stay disciplined. Of course, fans will be watching closely to see what happens next. Conor has promised comebacks before, and his future has often been unpredictable. But if his latest message is anything to go by, he appears determined to turn this setback into motivation for whatever comes next. Move on to another news, as Jon Jones has made it clear that he is confident he would have defeated Pereira if the two UFC legends had ever shared the octagon. In a new interview with Alf Global, Jon Jones explained why he believes his physical strength and wrestling ability would have given Alex Pereira serious problems. According to Jones, he feels that his strength alone would have been too much for Pereira to handle. He believes that once the fight reached the ground, the matchup would have quickly shifted in his favor. Jones said he felt his physical strength would have been overwhelming for Pereira, and that the moment he managed to take him down, his submission game would have come into play. For Jones, wrestling and grappling would have been the clearest path to victory against Pereira. He appears to believe that controlling the fight on the ground would have allowed him to neutralize Pereira's biggest advantage, which is obviously his world-class striking. The hypothetical matchup between these two champions has been discussed by fans for years, especially because both fighters have dominated at the highest level in different weight classes. Pereira has built a reputation as one of the most dangerous strikers in MMA, while Jones is widely regarded as one of the most complete fighters the sport has ever seen. However, Jones also made it clear that there is no rivalry between them. He emphasized that they are not fighting, and despite his confidence about how the matchup would have played out, he said he is actually a fan of Pereira. Jones added that he supports Pereira and genuinely wants to see him succeed. So, while the fight may never happen, Jones clearly believes his wrestling, physical strength, and submission skills would have been the perfect tools to defeat Pereira. Move on to another news, as Carlos Prates is already looking ahead to a potential title run and has a huge target in mind. The welterweight division continues to become more competitive, but Prates appears to have his future mapped out. The Brazilian fighter has once again called out Ilia, making it clear that he has his sights set on the former champion if he eventually captures UFC gold. This is not the first time Prates has mentioned Ilia. In a recent interview, he explained that if he manages to become the welterweight champion, Ilia would be the perfect opponent for his first title defense. The reason is simple. Ilia has repeatedly talked about the possibility of moving up to welterweight, and Prates says he would be more than happy to welcome him to the division. Prates essentially believes that if Ilia really wants to test himself at welterweight, he can do it by stepping into the octagon and challenging the champion. During the interview, Prates was asked what his next step would be if he became champion. He was then presented with the possibility of Ilia moving up to the division within the next 6 months. Prates responded by saying that he would welcome Ilia to the wild race, while also making it clear that there would be nothing personal between them. According to Prates, he considers Ilia a good guy and a nice person. However, once they step inside the octagon, it's simply business. Prates explained that a matchup with Ilia could potentially be a super fight, or it could simply be a standard title defense. Either way, he would be ready for the challenge. The call-out is certainly interesting because Ilia has already established himself as one of the most dangerous fighters in the UFC, while Prates is looking to make his own mark at the top of the welterweight division. If Prates can capture the belt, a matchup against Ilia at 170 pounds could instantly become one of the biggest fights the UFC could make. For now, though, Prates still has to earn that championship opportunity. But his message is clear. If he becomes champion and Ilia moves up to welterweight, Prates says he will be ready and waiting to welcome him to the division. Move on to another news, as Michael Morales has confirmed that he will be returning to the octagon, and the welterweight division could be getting a massive matchup. The undefeated contender recently took to social media and appeared to confirm that he will compete at the upcoming UFC event in Philadelphia. While the UFC has not yet officially announced his opponent, reports suggest that Morales could be facing a major challenge against Yaroslav Amosov. Amosov is currently in the United States, which is usually a strong indication that he is preparing for a fight. Morales has now doubled down on his announcement, confirming that he will indeed be competing at the event. According to reports, the promotion could officially reveal the matchup very soon. If the fight is finalized, it would be a blockbuster addition to the welterweight division. Morales is still undefeated with an impressive 19-0 record, while Amosov has built his reputation around elite grappling and a highly technical fighting style. However, another possibility has also emerged. Carlos Prates has recently climbed to the #1 spot in the welterweight rankings following his dominant victory over JDM. That has led to speculation that Prates could potentially be matched up with Morales instead. Bisping also reacted to the rumors surrounding these potential fights, and he admitted that some of the matchups being discussed are absolutely insane. Bisping mentioned the possibility of Carlos Prates facing Michael Morales, although he made it clear that he had no confirmation that the fight was actually happening. He then explained that with Ian Gary and Islam competing in the welterweight division, the UFC may want to stack the card with other top contenders. The idea is to have potential replacements available in case something goes wrong during training camp. If a fighter gets sick, suffers an injury, or is forced to withdraw, the UFC could have another elite contender ready to step in. And according to Bisping, if Prates versus Morales actually gets made, it would be a fight he really wants to see. The reason is obvious. Both fighters are known for their devastating striking, both possess serious knockout power, and both are physically massive for the welterweight division. Whether Morales faces Amosov or Prates, his return could have major implications for the division. With an undefeated record and dangerous finishing ability, Morales is quickly becoming one of the most exciting contenders at 170 pounds. Move on to another news, as Team Khabib has sparked a huge debate by questioning whether Ilia is physically big enough to build a long-term career in the lightweight division. Speaking about the current 155-pound landscape, Thompson argued that Ilia may be better off returning to featherweight, where he could potentially dominate the division for years instead of facing naturally larger lightweight fighters. Thompson specifically pointed to Arman as a major problem for Ilia, suggesting that the physical strength and wrestling ability of a fighter like Arman could be too much for him to handle. According to Thompson, Arman would have significant advantages in wrestling, grappling, size, and overall physical strength. He believes that Ilia could potentially struggle against some of the bigger contenders at lightweight and might take unnecessary damage by staying at 155 pounds. Thompson also mentioned fighters like Paddy Pimblett and BSD as examples of physically large lightweights. In his opinion, Ilia is simply not a big enough fighter to comfortably deal with the division's biggest athletes over the long term. However, many MMA fans have pushed back against this argument. reminding everyone that Ilia already proved himself at lightweight. When Ilia moved up to challenge Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight title at UFC 317, he faced one of the most dangerous submission specialists in UFC history. Oliveira had an elite grappling pedigree and a natural size advantage, but none of that stopped Ilia from delivering a devastating first-round knockout. Ilia even managed to reverse an attempted takedown before finishing Oliveira with his world-class power, showing that he could handle the physical challenge at 155 pounds. Thompson still believes Ilia's best long-term option could be moving back down to 145 pounds. He suggested that Ilia could potentially defeat a top contender like Volk, reclaim the featherweight title, and establish himself as a dominant champion. In Thompson's view, Ilia could defend that championship repeatedly, build an incredible legacy, and secure his financial future before potentially returning to lightweight later in his career. He explained that if Ilia wanted to move back up at 34 or 35 years old, he would fully support the decision. But for now, Thompson believes Ilia is simply too small for the current lightweight division. Interestingly, Demetrious Johnson has also shown support for a potential lightweight matchup involving Ilia and Magomed, adding even more intrigue to the debate surrounding Ilia's future at 155 pounds. Move on to another news, as Jon Jones has delivered some massive praise for Khamzat, making the bold claim that the dangerous middleweight could potentially defeat anyone on the UFC roster if he enters the octagon with the right mindset. Jones even went a step further, suggesting that Khamzat has the raw talent, physical strength, and ferocity needed to defeat reigning heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall. According to Jones, Khamzat is simply a problem for anyone he faces. He believes that if Khamzat walks into the fight with the right mental attitude, there may not be a fighter in the UFC who can stop him. Jones also reflected on his own prime, explaining that he once believed he was the absolute best fighter in the world for a reason. He highlighted his dynamic kickboxing, explosive wrestling, dangerous submissions, cardio, physical strength, and confidence. However, Jones admitted that he is no longer in his prime and is now approaching 40 years old. Despite that, he remains extremely impressed by Khamzat and says he is grateful to be both his friend and his fan. This praise comes at a time when Khamzat's next fight remains uncertain. During a recent public appearance, Khamzat was asked about his return to the octagon and bluntly told the crowd that nobody wants to fight him, leaving his next move unclear. His team has reportedly been pushing for a rematch with Sean Strickland, but that fight is still not guaranteed. If the rematch fails to materialize, Khamzat could potentially move up to light heavyweight sooner than expected. A possible matchup with Paulo Costa has also been mentioned as an option. But the biggest takeaway is Jones' belief that Khamzat could potentially defeat Tom Aspinall at heavyweight. Coming from one of the greatest fighters in UFC history, that is an incredible endorsement of Khamzat's abilities and the threat he poses across multiple weight classes. Move on to another news, as a potential matchup between Ilia and Chenko is generating massive buzz, and Demetrious Johnson has now shared his thoughts on the intriguing possibility. According to Mighty Mouse, this is a fight that would be extremely interesting to watch. He believes the stylistic matchup makes a lot of sense, especially considering where both fighters currently stand in their careers. Ilia is coming off a difficult loss to Justin Gaethje, but he still has plenty of options ahead of him in the lightweight division. With several major fights potentially available, the former champion could choose from a number of dangerous contenders. However, Johnson believes a showdown with Chenko would be a particularly fascinating test. The matchup would bring together two fighters with very different strengths and skill sets, creating a fight that could be incredibly entertaining for fans. According to Mighty Mouse, Ilia's biggest weapon would obviously be his devastating power. His ability to land explosive strikes and finish fights at any moment makes him one of the most dangerous fighters in the division. At the same time, Chenko brings his own unique skill set into the matchup, which could create some fascinating exchanges throughout the fight. Johnson believes that combination of Ilia's power and Chenko's abilities could produce a matchup that fans would be genuinely excited to see. At 155 pounds, the lightweight division is already filled with elite contenders and potential blockbuster fights. But this particular matchup could stand out because of the stylistic contrast between the two fighters. For Ilia, it would represent another opportunity to prove himself against a dangerous opponent following his latest setback. For Chenko, it could be a chance to step into the spotlight and test himself against one of the biggest names in the division. Nothing has been officially confirmed yet, but Mighty Mouse's reaction has certainly added more attention to the possibility. If the UFC decides to make this fight, it could quickly become one of the most intriguing matchups available at lightweight.